started by making sure that the audience on YouTube can hear me. So Brandon, are we good? Do you think the volume is working and everything? Yes. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so first thing, let me tell you a little bit about this place that you're sitting in right now. So Fabric is actually a fashion incubator. We're a nonprofit. Fabric stands for the Fashion and Business Resource Innovation Center. And so it's an acronym. And what we do is we like to say we're democratizing fashion. We're actually making it available to anybody to start a clothing brand, because it's really hard to start a clothing brand. You have to have a lot of skill. And I was talking to everybody earlier, not everybody heard this, but if you're the one sewing, then yeah, you have to have a lot of sewing skills, and you have to have a lot of pattern making skills, and you have to charge a lot for your garment because you're making one and it might take you weeks to make that one. What I'm talking about that we do here is help apparel entrepreneurs, teaching them how clothing is manufactured. You're not the one sitting behind the sewing machine if you're making a ready-to-wear brand and you're manufacturing clothes. So you have to have a different set of skills. You don't really necessarily need to be learning how to sew and make patterns. You need to be learning how to be a production manager and a quality control manager so that you can hire the factories and find all the resources like pattern making and grading and marking and cutting and sewing, and be able to hire them and check that they did what you asked them to do correctly, and then keep it moving through the process, right? And not everybody knows how to, hardly anybody knows how to do any of that. And so we are democratizing this industry by teaching people how to do that, because a lot of people want to start clothing brands nowadays. I mean, the internet makes it possible to sell clothing worldwide, or to sell anything you want, to set up a website tomorrow. I could do it in an hour and I have a beautiful website and be able to have, any product sold to anybody. But making clothing is like one of the hardest things to do. Having manufacturing happen is so hard. So we're trying to make it easier for people to do that. On top of that, we actually offer the manufacturing. So not only are we teaching, but we're also providing manufacturing resources. So we're a manufacturer, we're a no minimum manufacturer. So you can come here and make any quantity you want. You don't have to meet a minimum at a giant overseas factory and make 10,000 units of your first design and then sit on all that inventory and hope to sell it. You should be able to make 20 or 100 or some smaller batch so that you can test the market, right? Well, there's a reason that doesn't exist. It's because it doesn't make the factory any money. They don't make any money making small batches. They make money when they make thousands of the same thing over and over. So we are a nonprofit because we actually lose money doing that. But that's one of the most important things we do. We just want to be able to provide this thing that enables people to get started, and be able to enter this industry without taking out $1 million loan and hiring a whole bunch of employees and sitting on a bunch of inventory and all of that. So factory, we are also an academy. We do a lot of classes here. You can take classes in almost everything fashion related. We're a studio space, so we have like sewing machines you can use. We also have offices. So behind this curtain, there's a bunch of offices. Over here, there's offices over there. So if you wanted an office here, you could have one. If you just want a desk, because it's more affordable, we have desks over here. We have events. So we produce events, we have our own events, and we're also just like a resource. There are so many things that you can find in the fashion industry by coming here. So I'm going to tell you about those things in just a second. Yay! Hi, guys. Oh my gosh, we have another apparel entrepreneur that just walked in. So Hiroko, I'm going to put you on the spot because I always let all the apparel entrepreneurs introduce themselves at these events. It's a perk of being an upgrade member from the free to the apparel entrepreneur membership. And Hiroko is an apparel entrepreneur, so I want her to be able to introduce her business. So do you want to stand up and tell everybody about your business real quick?
I don't know what to say. Okay.
Quick. Yeah.
My company is adjustable and casual to nice casual, and then also the.
What's the name of your company?
Okay, my company's name is Captivation by Rocco, and it's an online business, and I don't have a store yet, but so far I'm very beginner, and I need to learn a lot from.
But she's doing really good. I'll tell them a little bit about where you are. Thank you so much. So Hiroko is amazing because she is a really talented designer. Like, her stuff is beautiful and so wearable and just very unique. Yeah, she's got a unique perspective. It's just not something you see every day. And she makes like separates, like ready to wear, but really unique designery kind of stuff. And it's called Captivation by Roko, and it's in our directory. So the directory I was mentioning earlier, you could look up her brand and you can find her in there. And she's still in the process of getting all of this made. She's developed some sewn products and she's about to get into the manufacturing side of it. It takes a long time to get through developing a sewn product. And so she's gotten pretty far and she's ready to start manufacturing. So you're going to start seeing that. If you look her up, hopefully her website will be available soon with all the product on there, and you can start supporting a local designer and buying her stuff. And she started here at Fabric. So we're really excited about that. So we do a lot of different things like help apparel entrepreneurs and provide all these resources. Now, the other important thing about this place is we use a lot of innovative tools. Technology is the thing that we feel is allowing all these brands to do all these things and do it sustainably. Technology is the key to sustainability. So we don't make paper patterns and then cut this first sample and sew it up and then see if it's okay and then cut another one and fix the pattern and keep going and all that. I mean, sometimes we do for certain products, you have to do that. But for most products, we design them digitally on digital software where we can make the pattern. We stitch that up on an avatar so you can see what it fits like and what it looks like, and you can play around with the design and tweak the fit of it. And then we can even embed the fabric characteristics in it so that you can see how it's going to drape and how it's going to stretch and if it's going to fit okay. And then we can tweak it that way. And that saves so much waste and so much time and so much money. And then after you've perfected it, we can engineer really unique artwork like prints and put it in there. And then you can take that artwork and you can show it to the world by taking your avatar, putting it on your website. You can have your avatar running on a beach or walking a runway or whatever you want to do, put it in any scene you want, and then you can collect orders, and then you can fill the orders here on demand, meaning you can print, cut, and sew only what's been ordered, so you don't have to sit on inventory. You don't have to sit there and order 100 or 100,000 of something and sit and hope to sell it. If you made one dress and your entire collection was made out of just this one dress and you sold it in 5 different prints, and somebody ordered a small in the octopus print and medium in the bubble print and a large and the rainbow print, we're just going to print that and cut it and sew it and you fill that order. And that is a really special thing. And then we have this other technology that allows you to explain that to your consumer, to give them the education and why your garment is so special, because they're going to have to spend more on it. When you're making small batch of anything, it's going to cost more. So what we do is we give you a little product passport, digital product passport you can embed in your clothes, and it allows you to click your phone or touch your phone on the garment, and you can see videos and all kinds of things. So I'm going to show you what all of that looks like in a really quick video. Hopefully, nope. Okay, hold on. I think I have to actually push the button. Give me 1 sec. So this is part of our Eco Fashion Week, which took place right here. One of our designers created this butterfly brand and basically took the wings of the butterfly and used that as inspiration. So there's the pattern being made digitally. And then she actually just wanted to sketch it herself to see what it's going to look like. She took the butterfly wings, placed it into this circle skirt pattern, and then we printed that on our printer. And in order to see what it was going to look like, she stitched it up virtually to make sure that everything was lining up okay. This is what it looks like when it's printing. This is a sustainable printer, so it can print on any fiber, and it uses no excess water. And then just cutting it and sewing it, so each one can be made individually. And then you can also put your avatar in any setting you want and use that as marketing, and you can see just how lifelike it was. I mean, it looks exactly like the real dress does. So that allows you to go through all that development. And the development is the most expensive, most complicated, hardest part. You can see that's the digital product passport. So she put all that content in there. So the person buying that dress would know how it was made and why it was special. So that allows for all of that to come together in one really cool thing. So, so this place is really special. Our mission is a people mission. We want to help people start clothing brands and be able to do that with technology to make it more sustainable. Our vision is a planet vision. We want to change the way the fashion industry is. It's broken. It's all very unsustainable and very unethical. And we have a lot of tools here that show the industry that you can do it better. And by supporting small brands, That's really the answer. Big brands, that's over. Like that overproduction overseas, unsustainability thing, that's a dinosaur thing that's going to be extinct really soon because the world's starting to care a lot more about, what happens to the planet. And it's crashing and burning right now because of the fashion industry. I mean, there is so much overproduction and it's all sitting in our landfills and it's all made out of plastic. Polyester is plastic. So this industry has to change, and our mission is to create a circular supply chain for the fashion industry, reshore it back to the United States and make it better using technology. We have provided about $13 million worth of free and discounted programs and services to the community since 2016 so that apparel entrepreneurs' journeys are much more affordable. So we're providing all kinds of free and discounted things to make it easier to start a brand. We've helped about 2,000 apparel entrepreneurs at this point that have come through these doors and used these resources. So we're really proud about it. The free member benefits, there are some things I want to tell you about. You guys are all free members if you've attended this event because we've created an account for you. You can log into your account and you can take classes, you can attend events, you can use resources here, you can use our sourcing library. There's all kinds of things you can do. We have a business directory on our website. It's under the community tab. If you're a business, you can add yourself to the directory for free. So if you're a designer, go do that tonight. Literally log into your free membership, click add business directory, and put your website, a picture of what you do, a description, your social media handles, put all that in there. That's going to help you get more traction to your website. It's going to help raise your SEO. It's going to get more people buying from you and maybe even some media coverage because people go to that directory to find all the fashion industry businesses in Arizona and beyond. There's also models, hair, makeup, stores, photography. You can find all kinds of things in there if you're looking for whatever you need. There's also a classifieds page. You can post a job there for free if you're hiring, or you can find a fashion job there. So if you're looking for a job, go to that page. Also, we have an events calendar. You can find all the fashion events in the industry that we know of and in one place on that calendar. So now you don't have to know where to go. You just go to the one calendar, you find it all. You can also find our events. We try to make our events much more affordable because it's expensive to participate in fashion shows and stuff. So our fashion week every year is Eco Fashion Week, and it's free. You can attend for free and you can be on that runway for free. So look for all of that on the events calendar. We also have all kinds of other things. So pay attention to our newsletter. I send a newsletter once a month, and that's how I share all the things that I know about that I think is going to help your fashion business. We also have a paid membership called the Apparel Entrepreneur Membership. And it's basically allows you to work with us to be able to manufacture your product. So if you're thinking about starting a clothing brand and you want to go through all of that and be like Hiroko and start your business and be able to get products manufactured and everything, that guide, the roadmap that tells you how to get through production management and everything is already built. All the lessons are in there, all the forms, the contracts, the directions, the resources. Hey, here's where you go to find your wholesale fabrics. Hey, here's where you go to get this or that. Here's what you need to check for. Here's how to fill out this form. It's all built into a roadmap. It's got $70,000 worth of education into it. So that's our biggest gift to the world because this is the stuff that you don't learn in school. They just don't teach this stuff. Okay, now the moment you've all been waiting for. Every time we do this, the goal is really to bring all of you guys together so that you can learn something, I can learn something. It's always something different every single time. It's a different subject. And so that we can all meet each other and network with each other, which I've seen a lot of that happen tonight. So I'm really excited. I am so excited about this behind the scenes this month because I'm a really big fan of vintage. And one of the things I want to say is I've been talking this whole time about how we help people make clothes. Honestly, we don't need to make any more clothes. I mean, we only do this because people still want to start clothing brands. We want to help them do that. But there's enough clothing on the planet to last us for another couple hundred years. We wouldn't run out of it. And so, we should be really mostly buying vintage clothing, and, resale is such an important part. And I'm just so excited that that's become a bigger thing now. And a person who has been in this industry for a very long time is going to be telling us a lot about this industry and about her journey. What we do in these is actually be able to share somebody's journey because it's really interesting, first of all, but it's also great for students in the room to kind of see that there's never a straight line. You never end up doing what you think you're going to be doing. And it always veers off all over the place before you end up in your ultimate, place in the universe that you're supposed to be. And so I love hearing people's journey. And then each time this guest speaker teaches us something. So really excited because Corey Martinez from Luxie Vintage, which is my favorite vintage store in town, is here joining us today. And so let's give her a warm welcome. Yay. Come on up. And here's your mic.
Oh boy. Okay.
Now, one thing I'm going to tell you, you have to put it like uncomfortably close to your face for it to work. So
Okay.
don't
Sorry
forget to
for the
keep it.
heavy breathing. I'm nervous.
Everybody, can you see still behind us? Okay. All right. So, you know, I'm so excited because like we just like went over what we're going to see last night, and this girl has the coolest journey. You were like the coolest person. I'm telling you, like, I'm like, oh my God, I want to be you. She's so cool. I can't wait to share all of this. So I always start every one of these by saying, let's go way back and learn about you as a kid first. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like, you know, when you were young?
I was born and raised in Arizona. I grew up in Phoenix and South Scottsdale. My parents, they got divorced when I was like 5, but they're divorced in this photo in the top left corner, but they still did a pretty good job trying to stay friends, and they're sitting next to each other right now, like
Aww.
35 years later. So.
Yes. let's
So
give her a
yeah.
hand. Close, but not too close.
So yeah, luckily I had pretty cool, supportive parents for the most part. But yeah, what else?
Okay, so tell us a little bit about you as a teenager. Because it looks like from this picture that you were already wearing vintage way back when it wasn't as cool as it is now.
Yes, I was, like you said, I'm cool. So no, okay, no, I actually, I had an older sister, comes with a whole lifestyle, and we were really into kind of rebelling from mainstream stuff, and vintage clothing was an easy way to express ourselves because we didn't look like what other people looked like in school, like with clothes and stuff like that, especially because I went to school in Scottsdale, which was scary. So
I did too. So
you did?
I'm born and raised in
Okay.
Arizona, went to Scottsdale. I went to Horizon. What high school did you go to?
I went to Saguaro.
Okay, we were like rivals.
Oh my, well, it's okay because I didn't play that game, so
didn't
I
either.
wasn't
We
sporty,
hung out with a
but
lot of Saguaro.
yeah.
But I feel like we probably would have hung out because I
Oh,
was
yeah.
that girl wearing my
Yes,
vintage dress with my combat boots back then too.
absolutely. Yeah, we weren't there at the same time.
Yeah.
So we're really musical, and I was like a big fan of Courtney Love, you know, for better or for worse, but we got into like baby doll dresses and like having our hair all messed up and ripped tights and stuff, which like today isn't even shocking, but it was fun to shock people in the late night. My mom was not
Mom
a fan.
did not approve.
I
Mine
wasn't
didn't either.
gonna. Yeah, it is true.
Dad's the rock star.
Didn't want to start a fight, but my dad thought it was pretty cool, and my mom was absolutely hated it, horrified. I think you liked that the vintage clothing was cheaper than mall clothing, but other than that, you were not a fan.
That's amazing. So what kind of student were you in high school?
I was a pretty good student. I was kind of like a nerd on that level.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I got good grades for the most part and took honors classes
Oh
and
my
stuff like
gosh,
that. But
good
I
for
looked
you.
like I was getting Fs.
I was getting
So,
Fs.
okay.
I was not a good student, so that's where we part ways.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I was afraid of the consequences because my mom was scary.
Sounds
But
like
yeah, so no, I did get good grades, and I'm lucky. My parents both encouraged me. Mostly my mom was really encouraging me to go to college, for better or for worse, because at the time that wasn't something that was like my number one goal. I think I told her I wanted to be a hairstylist because she's a hairstylist.
Oh,
and
awesome.
she said no. So she said,
Oh, that's smart. That's amazing.
yeah.
Wow.
So I didn't even know what I wanted to do anyway. And I look back, I'm like, that was never going to happen, even if she let me go to cosmetology school. I just didn't really have a plan. But the center photos right here, so those are not me. But in high school, I took a photography class. It was a film photography class, and that was those two black and white photos. That was probably in like the year 2000, and we had to do a project at the end of the class. And so my project, I decided to photograph different types of fashion. And I had like a goth chick. We like went to a graveyard and she laid on a grave. And I had an industrial guy, I had ravers because it was the year 2000. So ravers were really big. And my friend, she was more of like the riot girl on the bottom with her little baby doll dress. And then my sister was wearing a vintage dress as well. And she was like the housewife stereotype. So when I look back, it's kind of funny because that is essentially what I'm doing today, is just photographing people out in the wild in their clothing. But
these pictures, where did they land? Because there wasn't really social media at that time.
they landed on the teacher's desk and she wasn't impressed. So yeah, they didn't go anywhere. I kind of forgot about them until I was putting together this slideshow. And around the same time of all this in high school, I just took a personal interest in websites. And so I don't think coding was even, maybe it was being used, but the word coding, I didn't know what that was. But at like a Angel Fire or GeoCities website and make a personal page. And I just was fascinated by that. So in high school, my dad had a computer. It was like 56K modem speed. And I would just stay up all night. There was a website called HTML Goodies, and the guy just had tutorials. And so you could just take classes, and I just would start in Microsoft Word, just an empty, not Word, WordPad, Notepad. I don't use a PC anymore, so I forget. But just start from scratch, just with just pure code. And then you could pull up the file through Internet Explorer, and you would have this beautiful looking website. And I thought that was just the coolest thing ever, even if my website looked really janky. I was like, oh my God, it worked. So I did that a lot for no reason in high school. So it really looks like I'm just totally on the path to between the vintage clothing and the website. Like next step, I'm just selling vintage clothing on a website. But that wasn't not as quickly as you would think. So
Well, I'm impressed about the coding. That's pretty cool.
I think
especially way back then.
I missed my calling. I could
Yeah.
be very
the
wealthy.
fact that you can
and-
do that. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Well, I mean, now the technology has completely passed me. But at the time, yeah, I made a website for a restaurant in Scottsdale. I made one for my dad's construction company.
Awesome.
Yeah, and his plant company. Are you self-promoting right now?
Wow.
So yeah, I probably should have pursued that
yeah.
at the time, knowing what that's turned into
Amazing.
today.
But it's a good thing you did it, or I wouldn't be wearing this cute
Yes.
dress.
So yeah, and I actually was able to find this on Google. My website was called dollsareempty.com.
Oh
It's
my
very
gosh,
deep.
I love
But yeah, so I had a personal page. So okay.
it. That's so funny.
So this is college life. So no, I did not start selling vintage clothing. I worked at Guitar Center. I went to ASU and I was studying biology.
Why did you work at the Guitar Center? Can you play the guitar?
Not well, but yeah.
Oh wow.
I just thought it sounded cool to play to work there. I played flute and I took piano lessons, and my dad did teach us. My dad's a musician, so I was just helping him get the Guitar Center discount, basically. But
he got you in.
yeah, but it was just a fun place to work, and yeah. So I was taking biology, but while I was in ASU, I started dancing, just doing like modern dance, ballet, and jazz, and I really became obsessed with that, and that slowed
And you
me
hadn't
down.
done that before?
When I was like very young, I
Okay.
did gymnastics, dance, stuff like that, but I took a huge break, and then when I was 18, I took a class at SCC, and then it slowed me down. It took me 5 years to graduate from ASU, but it was because I was just so busy dancing and having a fun
Yes.
time. And so one of my dance class, or one of the performances, they're all wearing my vintage clothing, which was fun.
And this is just out of your closet.
Yes. So, okay, we're kind of jumping around here. So while I was going to ASU, I reconnected with an old friend. We were like 21, but just a friend from high school. And that friend told me that they were selling vintage clothing on eBay. And I was like, oh, huh. And they even said like, oh, you got me into vintage clothing in high school, and they're into fashion too. And I was somewhat familiar with eBay because I had sold some like Starbucks merchandise, because also in the early 2000s, I think there was literally like 2 Starbucks in the whole state of Arizona, and one of them was at the airport, I think.
So
But
weird.
so my friend worked at Starbucks pretty early on, and when they would like retire an apron and we started selling vintage clothing together. And That's when we move to the next slide.
Okay.
So it was called Meat Market.
I love the names of your companies.
We were vegetarian, but everyone was very upset with the logo. So the early day logo, it was just a piece of meat, and then we would like a realistic steak. It was the background of our
Everybody was very
images.
upset with it.
Yeah, we would get a lot of hate mail, and I was like, I'm vegetarian. So this was like 2006 era. So at the time, the only place to sell clothing was on eBay, which there's always someone that's like, that's not true. We were selling on Yahoo groups, and someone said LiveJournal. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember LiveJournal, but I don't remember vintage clothing being sold on there. But
I don't even know what that is. I don't remember
it
something.
was like an emo online diary
Really?
that everyone regretted after it was forever in the universe.
Yeah, me too. You're right.
Do you remember it?
No, she said, I think I'm too old for that. I think I am too.
Yeah, we don't need to go back and read those. Apparently people were selling vintage, but eBay, there was no Poshmark, there was no Depop, no Etsy. Well, Etsy I think did come out in 2006, but it had just launched. I wasn't even aware of it. But so it was kind of great in a way though, because there was only really one place for people to find clothing, so to buy and to sell. Because even as a buyer, it's hard when you have to look at so many different selling platforms to try to find that one piece you're looking for. So it was truly the glory days, because everyone was under the same roof, and it was auction style. I don't know that if they had unrolled buy it now yet. It was purely, or the most popular way to buy was through auctions. So I didn't even have to set the price, which was good, because I was like 21 and like, I don't know how much is this, but so I would just start at $9.99, and then people would just bid it up. I don't know if any of you are familiar with like Nasty Gal or Girl Boss, Sophia
Yeah.
Amoruso, but so I remember when she like came onto eBay, and she really was a sensation, but I was there even before she was. But she's no joke when she talks about how it was so fun to watch your items get bid up. It really was, my little weird like capitalist
Adrenaline.
yeah. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. But so yeah, eBay was a really fun time. And but it wasn't like, it didn't feel like a real business, because people would be like, oh, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I sell.
Like on what?
Yeah. It was still like an unfamiliar concept. That it was hard to be proud of it, because it looks like my own web. So we had a website landing page to get people to eBay. So we were always trying to like customize it. So I don't know if you remember from like MySpace days, like anything you could do to customize your MySpace, like make your background pink or whatever, like made all the difference. So we were able to customize our eBay listings, and I was able to use some of my website skills.
Oh, yes.
So it maybe isn't a big deal today, but like all the way to the right. So that would be like the inside of our eBay listing, because it was not cool to just like upload your photos into eBay's own photo gallery. Like, ew, no, like you had to make it like very personalized
Curated,
looking
yeah.
and curated. And yeah. So that was like the inside of our eBay listing. And I feel like with how you photograph stuff, like now it's fun to see, well, because our phones are so much nicer, organic or candid photos. But at the time, our photos were embarrassing. We were just like, we were modeling our own stuff. Our friends were modeling. The pictures looked like crap. We didn't even have smartphones. So we weren't even we were using like an actual like digital camera.
Right.
And it just didn't look cool. So we were like, we have to look more professional. Like that's the goal here. And so we need like a studio with powerful lighting and seamless background paper. And so we got it, and it was in a bedroom in my apartment.
We got it.
We made it.
Bedroom in my apartment.
Yeah. So this was my old studio, and the desk to the right was the shipping station, and the inventory was in that room too, on a exposed clothing rack. But the cool thing was, because it was auction style, things had to end. It was a 10-day auction. So our inventory, we turned it over so fast because it forced the sale to end. And because it was like a high intensity auction and a lot of impulse buying, stuff would sell. So we would list like 40 things a week, and it was not uncommon for 38 of them to
That's
sell.
amazing.
I miss it.
Yeah, especially back then when people didn't buy online as readily as they do now because, it just was unfamiliar.
Yeah.
you
Oh, yeah.
know?
We were just shipping away, and you couldn't even prepay all of your label or pre-print all of them. We had to like hand fill it out, wait in line at the post office, and but it was cool because we didn't stuff didn't accumulate the way that it does now, because the whole style of the auctions kind of phased out, and then it turned into fixed prices, and then the psychology, I think, of the shopper changed, and so stuff sat longer, and then you needed more space.
So how did you get people to understand the way something fits or, whatever they would need to know to convince them to buy it? I mean, did you just have to get very descriptive and take a lot of measurements and things like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, and we've only gotten more and more descriptive.
Right.
So in the beginning, yeah, we would just do like bust, waist, hip measurement and length. And I would do it at like lightning speed. I would just sit crouched down on the floor and like put on like MIA or something that would just keep me going and to work fast. And we would just write like one description, everything said good vintage condition, some flaws, and we'd ship it out. And then we had to just deal with all the angry customers after that. And I learned the hard way about, people's expectations when they get a piece of used clothing that they didn't get to personally look at, try on, assess for themselves. So yeah, we do shoulder measurements. I do back of neck to crotch for like a jumpsuit because everyone's torsos are different lengths, rise, inseam. Sometimes we'll do the armhole opening, the sleeve cuff opening. It's pretty detailed. And then we're like little forensic scientists. We take our phones and we photograph every little stain, hole. And I've gotten really good at describing stains. It's a weird talent.
This one might be blood.
It's hard. They're hard to describe. You have to figure out like a relative size. Like we say like Tic Tac size or rice size, pea size. So yeah. I take a lot of photos of stains, and I've learned how to describe them.
Oh my gosh. And the amount of work that probably went into that. How long do you think you spent on each item doing that?
So it probably takes 10 to 15 minutes per item. I think we put in more effort than this average seller does.
Mm-hmm.
But I really could see our returns went down so much the more info that we put, and you want them to come back and buy more. And so if they see that you are over explaining things or you're taking lots of photos, that puts trust in an online shopper too. And, we're not here to try to fool them.
Right.
I want them to feel good when I'm pricing something at $400 and it's a polyester dress.
Yeah.
So that happens to be very valuable, but yeah. So yeah, we probably the thing is though, that's just for measuring, but we also put time into photographing it and then actually going and listing it. So I don't know that I want to do that math.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I was just listening to a podcast. I listened to this podcast called Clothes Horse podcast. I actually interviewed that person on one of these behind the scenes. So if you want to go watch it, she's a sustainability expert. And one of the ones I was listening to today or yesterday, she was talking about about RealReal, where they authenticate, designer stuff and resell it. And she said that within an hour, they have to authenticate, photograph, measure, and describe. I think it was 45 items in an hour. How is that even possible?
Yeah.
I don't even understand that. So
there are
crazy. I'm always curious, how long it takes to actually do these things.
I'm telling you, it takes a long time. And I do think when I'm in the zone, I work pretty efficiently, but there's all these TikTok videos where people are measuring 500 shirts in 45 minutes. And I'm like, no way. It's also a t-shirt. So it's a lot easier to measure and to find problems with. And the fit doesn't get weird with the t-shirt the way it can get weird with a tailored rayon dress from the 40s that has been steamed a million times, has shrunk in all weird ways. So we also mention the model said that it fit weird here, because I don't try on every piece of clothing personally. And so I always ask my models, will you let me know if the boning is stabbing you in the ribs, or, and if there's a dress that's formal and has boning, or just there's always weird stuff happening. There's little surprises later that you find out.
And one of her models is sitting right there. If you want to raise your hand. Yes.
Yes. And my coworker.
Yeah.
Holly.
Holly.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So after you got to from this point on, wait a minute. Did I get anything on this? I feel
Probably. It's okay. We
Okay.
should move on.
like
This is the past.
we kind of got off on a tangent. I have questions. I always have lots of questions.
Yeah, and I hope that we have time to answer
Yes,
questions,
we
because I feel
will.
like a lot of people want to know, like, how do you know things are vintage? And this is more just like sort of the story of how I got to sitting up here, but I'm happy to answer all sorts of questions too. So this is just a little bit more of like trying to really establish ourselves as like a professional business, because you know, on the one hand, you could just say like, who cares if people don't take you seriously? But it is hard to take yourself seriously if you feel like no one is taking your business seriously. So we started doing more things like editorials, and we would, instead of just having our friends or ourselves model, we were just starting to ask people we didn't know to model. And this is before Instagram. Even on MySpace, I don't think I ever found, we had a pretty large MySpace following, but I don't think I ever connected with a local person. We would just go up to strangers with business cards or at parties. I mean, I was a lot more social then, so I was interacting with people more.
Are you a model?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was
Would
weird.
you like to be?
I was creepy. Yeah. One time, I gave a card to someone and she was like, yeah, you already asked me this like a month ago. And I was like, but she ended up being Adrienne, who we were talking about last night, who has modeled for me now
Yeah.
for 13 years.
Oh
So
my gosh,
good thing
wow.
I asked her twice.
Persistence.
So yeah, and we would use a website. It might still be around. It's called Model Mayhem.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was more like
Funny.
industry based, so
Yeah.
it wasn't totally what we
Sketchy.
want. Yeah, it was definitely
It is
sketchy
now.
for like creepo photographers. Yes. So, you know, we didn't want necessarily professional models because we didn't want to look like Nordstrom or something, but we wanted people who weren't like terrified to get their photos taken, and we were paying our models. So I am proud of that. Since day one, I've always paid my models, which I think everyone should do, because you're selling clothing off their bodies. So yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Good. I love that. Oh,
did I? Oh, okay.
no, it's still. You can still hear us? Okay.
So, actually, I'm wearing the dress and that this model has in the bottom right-hand corner.
God,
Still
you
have
are.
it. So yeah, this is just like just some of our editorial stuff we were doing to just, even though we were still only on eBay, we like to change our layout, and then whatever we were doing on MySpace. The social media at the time didn't really integrate the way it does today. So like today you can integrate your TikTok or Instagram with like your Squarespace store or your Shopify store, or even with Etsy, and that was not happening at all at the time. It was just like put a link underneath a photo and hope they click on it. There was no communication going on through it, but we still wanted our MySpace to look snazzy, and so yeah, we were just doing all sorts of different types of photo shoots to try to brand ourselves.
So these just kind of rotated on your page.
Yep, whenever we had like new items up, we would put them up on social media, but then we would also do these more like themed editorial shoots just to be like, see, look at, we're cool. We're like a brand.
How cute.
Okay, so now this is just kind of more of like the growth part of things. So yeah, as clothing wasn't turning over as fast, like because we weren't doing the auctions anymore, we started doing like a buy it now situation on at eBay, where you had to set the price and then it just stayed up for sale until somebody bought it. It was like a different workflow. And so instead of just really turning things over, we just had to list more. And then the more we had up, the more would sell. And then you just add more and you just kind of live in that vicious circle. But we also wanted to just push harder to grow the business. So we got a warehouse in Tempe, in the industrial part of Tempe. It was a 1,400 square foot warehouse. It was pretty big. We were not organized, as you can see in the photos. So this top left picture, that was like our inventory room. And then I'm sitting at the sewing station. So that was kind of nice. We had a little bit more room to sew. This is another, there was like a bunch of little offices up front. So the front room was like a whole shipping room. And then anything that was up for sale, you can't really see, but there was like a whole rack here that kind of looked like that rack, but that was everything that was online. So if it's sold, like, bless you trying to find it, because it was in that crazy pile of stuff. And we weren't really good about like making sure everything was repaired before it sold. So some things would sell and we'd be like, oh my God, like there's shreds going through it and it needs to go to the dry cleaner. And now we have to do it because it's sold. Like it was pretty unorganized.
But the sewing machine is there because you personally, you and your crew there would fix things as much as you possibly can. Where did you learn how to sew?
So I did take one class at Joann's in high school. And then my mom did try to teach my sister and I how to make some Barbie clothing when we were young, but it didn't really take off. And so it was mostly just self-taught once there was like a need to learn. And like I said, we would just send stuff to customers and then they would be like, the armpit was busted out. And then we're like, oh, we should start fixing those things. Like we can do this. So yeah, and we also, at the time, like a maxi dress would not sell on eBay. And we just started chopping all the vintage dresses into minis. And in the beginning, we would just sell it with the raw hem, like no shame. We'd just be like, dress has a raw hem. And it would just get bid up to like $300. We're like, no one cares.
Because they're going to have it to the length they need anyway. So.
Or they're just going to wear raw hem.
Right,
But so
right.
eventually we were like, hey, we're trying to be professional. I wonder if we just folded up this polyester dress one time. It's polyester. It doesn't fray. Who cares? Maybe we could sell it for more. And so we started doing that. And yeah, and we just kept going with it and getting slightly better at repairs and things like that.
What about stains? Did you have to kind of learn what would take out different stains? And
Yeah, it's a whole science. There's like laundry witches out there for sure.
you have probably gone through a lot of OxyClean, I'm
Yeah,
imagining.
yeah, and like different products take out different stains. So like any type of cleaning materials, like if there's an oil-based stain, you might want to use something like dish soap because that'll
Dawn.
pull that'll pull the oils out, whereas if you try to use that on something else, you're not going to get anywhere. So yeah, you learn a lot by damaging the items. Like it's always like my all-time favorite piece that I was like, let's make it better and get rid of that stain that's this big. And then I like totally ruined the entire thing. And I'm like, we should have just left the stain on there. But yeah, so do a lot of laundry and have learned a lot about, you can sometimes see just based off like the color of the stain, like that's probably not going to lift again, or so you can tell it's had multiple attempts, or it's just this weird rust color. We call it sketty because it looks like spaghetti and it just doesn't like to come out. And even with rust remover, and there's all sorts of different, someone out there can do
It
it.
sounds like blood. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we could get dark-sided. Someone died in it.
You do, yeah. You do all that laundry like in your place. You have your own,
Yeah. So unfortunately, we don't have a laundry at the store, and we didn't at this warehouse either. So that's always been a little bit annoying because we have to go back and forth. But it's also nice because when I'm home and I'm not supposed to be working, I can just throw some laundry in and keep working. But I kind of think of it as like passive working.
Passive working. That's the brain of an entrepreneur.
Sad.
Oh my gosh, it never stops. You never stop working.
Yeah, pretty much. So we had this warehouse, and the back room here, this was a big open garage, and that's where we would do the photo shoots. But we also would have band practice there because I worked at Guitar Center, so I should be in a band, right? And so we would have band practice back there, and then
what did you do in the band? What position were you in this band?
I played bass and I sang a little bit. It was a punk band, so you didn't have to be super good. So yeah, we had band practice there, and then we were letting our friends practice there, and then we were like, oh, we should just start having shows here. This makes sense. And so we like turned it into a venue at night, and we called it Meat Market Garment Factory. And it like took off.
It was amazing. Oh my God.
It was fun until it wasn't fun.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So it was like stressful because by day we're like handling these delicate collectible clothing, and then we're like, let's just scoot this to the side and just have people like
a mosh pit,
like sliding through beer, like lighting fireworks off. Please don't do that inside or outside because then the cops are going to come.
That's where the bloodstains came in.
Right. Yeah. So, but it was fun. It was a really fun time at the time. And then we decided to start looking for interns because we did need more help. And I was like, this could be cool for people. Let's see what's out there. And so I started reaching out to MCC at the time, which it was when you were working there, but we
Yes.
didn't know each other.
Yeah.
And so the director at the time was like, this is awesome. This is so much better than just getting a job at the mall. She gave me zero direction or framework, and she was just like, here you go, have fun. And it was terrifying for me. The interns seemed even more terrified, and I was like, you have no idea. I am so scared. I don't know what I'm doing.
Like, do we have to be in the mosh pit?
Yeah, I was like, don't tell the director that we're doing this. But so yeah, we had interns, and we were getting positive feedback from them and from the director. She's like, the students are saying that they're loving it, and I was like,
Awesome.
cool, okay, like let's just keep going. And then we opened up a store for Meat Market. It was on Mill Avenue. It was right across the street from the ASU Art Museum. There was a coffee shop there called Three Roots. I don't know if anyone's old Tempean here, but we took over their space. And yeah, so then we had our warehouse and we had the storefront, and we were kind of killing it. And
Wow.
I was 25, or at the time I was 27.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, I made it in life. And then
Yeah.
everything just crumbled.
Oh.
Yeah, everything started falling apart in life. This is the dark days. And I started for
Which was your business partner?
business partner, music venue partner.
Oh my goodness.
All the things. And it was a horrible, horrible time. And then in addition to that, the Department of Homeland Security came knocking on my door at the store on Mill Avenue because of the music venue.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Arizona has its own Department of Homeland Security, and they were like, gotcha. Like, so we had an event coming up during this whole crumble. We were still having shows, and we would host the shows, but other people would like,
Perform.
well, they would organize them.
Okay.
We would just host, and there was an anarchist group that was organizing the next show, and it was a fundraiser for the San Francisco Peak Mountains. It was like very nice, positive, environmental.
Influx, yeah.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
but if you have an anarchist group, you are considered a terrorist.
Oh
apparently,
my
like,
goodness.
for real.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, they came in and they were like, if you have this show, like they caught wind of the flyers, and they were like, if you have this show, we're going to come shut it down. And actually the fire department will come if you ever have a show here again. We had no permits for it. I mean, we had no insurance for it. It was dumb, but that's
So when you're in your 20s,
right?
you don't even know that that's a thing, probably. You're like, I don't even know that you're supposed to have
Well,
this or
I
that or
mean,
whatever.
yeah.
So.
I love to play that card, but I mean, we did know that it could come with problems, but it was the problem that I did not need either at
Right.
that time. So that was scary because I'm like, if they shut this down and like we get in trouble with our landlords, where am I going to work
Right.
on this stuff? Going through really hard times in life, blah, blah, blah. So what we ultimately decided was, because we couldn't decide on who gets to keep the name, that we're just going to, one person's going to take the brick and mortar and one person's going to take the online, and we're going to share the name.
Oh my goodness.
Not recommended.
Wow.
So we did that for like a year, and that obviously was really confusing.
Which one did you get?
I got the online, and so I did the warehouse, and I kept doing shows, but we changed it from Meat Market Garment Factory to Luxie Warehouse, and then we no longer printed the name on the flyers. It would just say "Ask a Punk."
Oh my gosh. You're
And,
great. This is great. This is a real punk.
It was hard too because we won an award through the New Times, and they were so excited to tell us. They're like, congratulations, you guys won best underground venue to see a punk show. And I was like, no, we don't want any
We're underground.
Yeah, we don't want to be on paper. Like, this isn't like, you want to advertise with us? I'm like, no, go away. I hate you. I don't hate you, New Times. Actually, they're really nice. But yeah, so ultimately, sharing a name just is not going to work. Right. So and I didn't know what to do because my heart and soul was in Meat Market, but I could see that it was going to like have to get to like a legal place in order to come up with a resolution, and I could not handle that. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to change the name. And so I did, and I changed it to Luxie Vintage, which is what the name is now, and that was in 2013.
Should I go to the next slide?
Yes, we can
Okay.
go to the next slide.
All right, there it is.
There we are, Luxie.
Yay.
It was confusing because I was like, how is this different? Obviously, I'm now running the business completely by myself. So, but I was doing all the exact same stuff. I just had more tasks, but I was like, what am I doing with this Luxie Vintage I've heard of? Like everything I have and like branded and stuff was in Meat Market. Even my models that came with me to the Luxie side of things. So it just visually looked the same. Like it just had a different name. And I was like, I thought that's the worst thing you can do is change your business name. Like especially when you have a following, like, hey, we're new name.
I mean, now there's a Meta and an X. I don't know. I feel like you can do it.
You just have to be the richest person in the world to do that.
I guess so. No, you did it, and you did it successfully. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, then it was Luxie Vintage, and it was hard because I suddenly didn't have 50% of the tasks being done. And so like stuff like the photography, I never did the photos, but then I had to start taking all the photos for the website. And it was overwhelming. I never did the shipping side of things, and I had to do the shipping. And so, I think a lot of entrepreneurs have this same burden where it's hard to give every area 100%.
Yep.
And it just doesn't look the way you want it to look. So that is where I started changing some things, I think, for the better.
And then the original logo, is it that one?
Yep. So the logo on that banner, because I wasn't excited to have a new business, but you're supposed to be like your biggest cheerleader when you're trying to promote a business. But I had to like have some branding stuff. So all I did was I just took the Meat Market logo. Don't tell anyone. No, I just like flipped the fonts. So there's two different fonts. It says Luxie and then it says Vintage Clothing, but the Meat Market one was just the inverse of that. And I was like, I made it anyway, so I'm just going to do this. But yeah, that was the big inspiration for the banner. But yeah, I started collabing more. I don't think that was a word yet, but I couldn't take all these fancy photos. I could do like the website photos, but I couldn't do the editorial stuff. But I happened to meet some friends who were photographers, and they were like, can we use your clothing and we'll take the photos. You can use the photos. And they were amazing. So like this slug bug picture down there, I didn't take that photo. That was a friend of mine who's a professional photographer. And I was starting to get a lot of awesome content that way. And it was benefiting me without having to try to put all this work into an art form that I'm not good at. And it's hard because you have to kind of let go a little bit, because with Meat Market, it was just like 100% like our vision. But it also opens you up to seeing like, oh, it's fun to look at your company through someone else's eyes. And I think that's kind of what Luxie has become in the big picture. Just it's like more about everybody's take on it. So I started collabing more, and I started doing some vending events because I got in trouble on eBay, which if you
Always in trouble.
you're not an eBay seller if you don't have some trauma story about it. But so yeah, they put me in timeout, and they put a limit on how many items I could list. And I felt it because I was relying on that. And it's a third-party platform, and they changed the rules, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I started moving over to Etsy. So that's why I put like Instagram, Etsy, and Shopify. That's kind of what started happening in the Luxie era. So I was like, I can't just rely 100% on one platform like eBay, because they are just going to keep changing their policies, whether I have an opinion about it or not. So I started selling on Etsy. And then I also was doing some more vending events, which I had never done. Not a ton of them, but just to make sure that like I had my foot in and it was not like totally a scary thing for me. And then I had an Instagram account since like the beginning of Instagram, but I just was kind of mindlessly adding photos to it. But when I was using the other photographers' pictures, I was seeing I was getting traction and I was getting followers. And that was during a time when Instagram actually like even somewhat made sense. Like, oh, people like this photo. Oh, you gained some followers from it. Like, oh, they're seeing your photos even. Wow, imagine that. And but I still wasn't super happy because I was selling on Etsy. I was still kind of selling on eBay, but I always wanted to have my own .com, because at least with that, you feel like it's more in your control. The only problem is that
Getting people there.
getting people to your .com, because Etsy has commercials on TV. Like I'm never going to be able to do that. eBay has commercials on TV. So even it was like a love-hate relationship. They drove so much traffic to, you don't even have to be looking for my store. You could just be looking for a 1970s Peter Pan collar dress, and you're just going to accidentally find my store. But luckily, as my Instagram account was gaining momentum, I finally decided to get a Shopify store, and through Instagram, I was driving almost 100% of the Shopify traffic was coming from Instagram, because I'd post this and be like, we just listed it for sale. And like, what do you know, that item would sell within 2 minutes. Like it was crazy. That like
Wow.
the power of Instagram at the time was awesome. So yeah, started trying to take better flat lays and stuff like that. But okay, well, you can go to the next one, I
And
guess.
this power of collaboration too. I just want to touch on that really quickly, because a lot of people in the audience, if they're starting businesses and they're just like, it's so expensive, and you pay all your models. Oh my God, how am I going to afford to pay all these models and the photographer and the hair and the makeup and everything? Sometimes just collaborating with a bunch of people who also need those photos, or also need something, put in a portfolio or whatever, is the great way to start that. And you build yourself a little community of people that are there to keep supporting you, and you create like a team. I mean, I did the same exact thing for the first 15 years of my journey, and this group of people were amazing and so talented, and we all just helped each other, and it built everybody's businesses up at the same time. So that's a great way to be able to afford to start a business.
It's better than thinking you can do it all. The flip side of that is, once the word gets out that you work with photographers, then you get people who ask you if you want to collab and you don't want to. And it's like, oh no. And it's actually can be a problem, because every time I lend my clothing out to a photo shoot, it comes back damaged, and it's already a fragile, damaged piece of clothing. And no matter how hard the photographer tries, maybe the model who doesn't know anything about me and is just trying to do exactly follow the direction of the photographer, next thing you know, she's like rolling in gravel in a chiffon dress.
Putting your stuff in a fashion show, it comes back with like lipstick on the inside from pulling it over their head too fast or whatever.
Right. So you take that risk, and it's worth it if you know that you like that photographer and the pictures are going to be worth the money you're going to spend to repair it. But if I don't feel sure that the photos are going to match the vibe, plus you're going to damage it on the way through the shoot, it's hard, because you have to say no, and everyone comes to you with like, I've got this good idea. And I'm like, I'm sure you do. I don't like your photos.
Would be really hard to
it's
say
hard.
no.
It's hard. But luckily there's more good than bad. So I got a Shopify store, and this is another collaborative shoot with Joey Madden from Solstice Intimates. That was awesome, because they were a very like vintage looking underwear company, and they liked to use vintage for their underwear. There's no underwear in that photo.
Underwear company.
They're local Tempe company, but Joey's photos were some of my favorite as well. And luckily he was needing clothing. They did shoots on a weekly basis. So I just got so many amazing pictures to just put up on Instagram and gain followers and use as banners and stuff. And it was also a fun time. And then we're all just too busy now to work with each other. But so we got a Shopify store, and then this is me getting more organized as time goes on. So earlier I showed you my warehouse. It was just like a total disaster of when something's sold. Hopefully it's there, because if it's not there, that means it needs to be cleaned or this or that. So I wanted to go out of town once in like 2015 or 16. My friend said I could stay at her house in Seattle for like a month. And I was like, yes, like I want to do that, but I'm poor. How can I do this? And so I was like, I can't shut my store on vacation mode. So I was going to ask my friend, can you come over to the warehouse and like help me ship? And he's a total trustworthy friend, but he's like a little like, I was nervous that he was going to mess something up. So I was like, I had heard of this SKU rack system from some of my friends who sell vintage in other states. I was like, I'm going to try it. So I made a SKU system, and I pre-packaged every order, and it had to be 100% clean, repaired. Everything was good to go in the bag. And then if it sold, we put the SKU number, in the product listing. It was very easy to find, and it worked. And so I did that. I was like,
wow, you had to photograph it all probably first and measure it all and then put it. Oh my gosh,
which we do anyway. But the initial, like the first time we ever did the SKU system, it was a lot of work because nothing was skewed. Yes. And so, but I was like, do you want to go out of town for a month? Yes. And so, so I started that SKU system, and then I was like, this is great. We're just going to make this a thing. And so we have this, it's double-sided. And so those are all of our online orders. So we have a store, a brick and mortar store, but anything that's online is prepackaged and ready to go unless it's like really bulky or, it's fragile and we're afraid it might get crushed. But it's awesome because then we just
It looks
grab it and
very
ship it.
organized. Very nice.
And then this is
Oh,
the
sorry.
girl, the girl who I asked twice to model for me and like made me feel really dumb. But there she is, just looking cute. So she's been modeling since 2011, so 13 years. Adrienne, she's not here tonight, but love her. Okay. So another thing that we started doing that I had never done before was doing more like themed collections, because vintage clothing can be a little overwhelming because it's all one of a kind stuff. And so it's fun, curating, which I've never been great at because I love loud, obnoxious things that clash. But we were like, why don't we just happen to have more wedding dresses than usual. So just totally unorganized thoughts. We were like, let's just shoot them all at once this time. And let's just like have 14 of them go up and we'll call it the bridal collection. And that's what we did in like 2018 or 19. And people loved it. And so then we're like, okay, let's do it again. And we just kept scaling it up. So we do a bridal collection, which is some example on the left. We were doing Halloween side-by-side costumes for a while, which now we don't really do that as much. We do like a witch collection and it's all spooky black stuff. And then we do a Valentine's Day collection every like end of January.
Tell me about this model in front of the orange curtain. Oh my God, she's gorgeous.
That's Sadie. Yeah, she's
all over your Instagram. I always see her. Like I'm always like, oh my God, that woman is gorgeous.
I know. Yeah, she's going places. I think she really is good. Like wants to pursue modeling and acting, and she's
Tell her
doing
to put
really great.
herself in the directory at Fabric.
Oh my gosh, yes, I will.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a gem. We
All these
love
designers
her.
will hire her in a second, I think.
Yeah, she is very special and really is like willing to do lots of great poses and stuff. Because models eventually they're like, you want me to do what? I'm not wearing that hat. I look dumb. Like, when they model for you for too long, we all get too comfortable. But yeah, and then I have another bad story. So this bottom left photo here, we were doing a Sharon Tate costume in the blue dress, and we sold that dress for like $78, but we probably spent like 2 hours making her leg look broken and like having, I didn't realize Sharon Tate had a broken leg once and was looking amazing shopping for flowers. But we put so much work into it and we get a good response. It's more for like almost for marketing when we do these Halloween costumes because it gets very well received. So sell the dress, don't think anything of it until about like over a year later, I got a really scary email that was like, show us proof that you have a license to use this photo. And if not, well, it said, first of all, immediately take it down. And if you take it down, that's not good enough. You still owe us $600, unless I show proof that I had the license. And it was an email.
goodness.
So yeah, it was, at first though, I was like, it said it was from Canada. I was like, this
Like
is
spam.
spam. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I just ignored it. And then 6 months later, I got another one, and it was like, because of your inaction, now the fine is like $800.
Oh,
and I was
no.
still like, spam, like you're trying to scare me.
Oh my God.
I also know like intellectual property rights. I know that is a thing, and I am a huge proponent for post original content. That was something I meant to say with the collab stuff. I've never really been an inspo person when I post stuff on social media, because it's not yours. And it is, I love other inspo pages, but I just don't like it for me. And so when I was collabing with people and photographers, it was awesome because I was a part of it, even though it wasn't 100% mine. And that was my version of inspo stuff. So I was always the biggest advocate for post original content. And then it came back to haunt me in this way. So I ignored the 2 emails.
And it seems like harmless because you're just trying to sell a Halloween look that looks like this. So you're just trying to show people what it's supposed to look like.
That's what
So-
I wanted to say to the lawyer. They
Yeah,
don't
you're like,
care.
oh.
We did such a good job, you know, like,
Yeah.
come on, it was only $80, the dress. And so then I got like a big legal, like hard copy stuff sent to my store right after I opened. They had retained a USA lawyer. And then I called my brother-in-law, who's a lawyer in California, cannot help me at all. But I was like, is this real? And he was like, oh yeah, that's real. Like,
Oh.
you should probably you need to do something about that. And so they used a like robo image crawler that's how they came across my website. So they found the image through Shopify, which was also funny because there was all this scary legal stuff and they kept showing the supporting evidence, which was like Adrienne with a toilet paper wrapped leg. I was like, this is so dumb. But yeah, so they just prey on small businesses who they know don't have lawyers retained themselves. And they're just like, this is a boilerplate for us. We do this all day long. So if you aren't willing to settle outside of court, we are ready to take you to court, and then you have to pay our lawyer fees, blah, blah, blah. So I just did like a cat and mouse like battle with them for a couple months. Like, I can't pay anything. I can pay $100. And they're like, that's not good enough. And they were starting at 2,000. I was starting at 100, and we settled on $800.
So it's back to the original.
Yeah,
amount that they
right.
were
Yep.
threatening.
So I had to pay $800 for that Halloween costume, and
Oh.
I don't want to do Halloween costumes anymore because I am
Yeah,
sad.
You're traumatized.
Yeah. I'm spooked by it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So post original content. I think you see it all the time on Instagram and social media. People do side-by-side stuff all the time. It's probably not true, but I think you are slightly more, I'm not going to use the word protected through Instagram, because it's more of just I'm just posting this for fun kind of thing. Whereas on my website, it was like a product
You're
listing.
making money off of
right.
it.
Yep.
Mhm. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Boy, it's always a life lesson is always
Yep.
kind of painful.
Yeah. And then this is just now, here we are today. So I kind of already said we have a store. It's called Luxie Vintage. It's in North Tempe. Holly, who's in this audience, we met through the internship program that we had going in 2019, and she was just a delight. I wish that we met so many slides ago. So so yeah, after the internship, she just never really left. Yeah. And so Holly has now completely taken over all of our alterations and sewing, and we actually offer alterations at the store now because we have an amazing professional sewist, and we just have the time to do it. So that's a cool thing that I had never done at my previous store, where it doesn't even have to be clothing from my store. You can bring outside clothing in, and she can tell.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Oh wow, that's cool.
yeah. And so we did a bunch of prom dresses, turn any dress, even if it is not going to fit you, we just put a corset on it. There you go. Now you
Okay,
have
well
one.
now you're gonna have to list this as a service in our directory under the alteration
Yeah,
section.
yeah, and our prices are way lower because we're not an actual alteration store. So yeah, we charge, I think, quite a bit less than if you were to take it to a real one.
That's great. Wow.
Yeah. So Holly and I, we have a very great workflow, and it's just been great. And she worked with me when we were online only, so she got to see all sides of it. And then when we opened the store, it was nice because she already knew the online stuff, and that helped the transition to having a store.
How many employees do you have?
Holly.
Just the two of you?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, just one.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So I mean, it keeps it so much easier.
Yeah, it is. So for the most part, it works out really well. Every now and then we have a scheduling conflict, and we have 3 people who are willing to fill in, but because we never need them, they never are available when we need them.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, what happens if one of you, if both of you can't and they can't? So have you ever, just had to shut down? For the day
Yeah,
or something?
yeah. And when the beginning, that really bothered me because of course, it's the one day that there's a crisis and you have to close. That's when someone is going to say on a negative Google review,
drove
from
3 hours.
Peoria.
Yeah.
And I do feel bad, but I'm
Yeah.
also oh my God, there was nothing we could do about this. But
I mean, that's an important thing for all the entrepreneurs because, you have to wear so many hats and the public, especially when you do such a good job like you do of looking like such a big business that is so successful, they just assume that
it's
there's
just
a
yeah.
staff of people that are there all the time. Everything is well-oiled, and they're,
Yeah, and it's almost
a lot to have to pull that off as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I don't know why we all encourage this from each other because, I mean, on the one hand, you don't want to be airing your dirty laundry out all the time, but you're always supposed to have this seamless facade of success.
Glossiness. Yeah.
And and we're just like crying and dying on the
Yeah.
other side. But
it's so true. But you're in a safe space here because all of us are crying and dying together.
well, don't get me started because my title is the CCO of Luxie, which is the Chief Complaining Officer. So I wear it proud. But
Yeah, you gotta let it out. You gotta let
Yeah.
it out. Make you feel better.
Yeah.
Do we have other slides?
So yeah, when we have 2 events coming up. So please come if you are available. This Saturday, we're doing a Friendsgiving event. So we're inviting some of our friends to vend outside of the store. We're gonna have 2 other vintage vendors. Someone's doing screen printing, and then someone who used to model for me. She's a welder now, and she does jewelry as well. So she's going to be selling some of her silversmithing jewelry. And then we do a fill-a-bag event a few times a year, and that's super fun because if you like a deal, it's $20, and we provide the bag, and we have a select amount of stuff. We set up a whole back room. Someone in this room has been
Her
there.
and I
2
have
people,
done
yeah.
it. Yes, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. And then you can kind of get the experience of like, let's say if you were at the Goodwill bins or, you're on the other side of things where you're just like picking and going
Yes.
crazy, and there's good stuff in there.
There is
So
really
that's
good
on
stuff.
Black Friday.
Yay. So can others vend? Like, are you looking for more vendors or is it-
Not for this
Okay.
event. But we do a few events every year. We really should do more of them, but it's hard because when you're too busy being busy,
Yeah, exactly.
it's like, oh, I have to look like I'm having fun at an event, and I have to organize it and answer questions, and yeah. But it's really good to do events for the smaller vendors, and it just does bring in a lot of money to the store that wouldn't have happened if you didn't have the event.
Yes, and this is a good weekend to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
awesome. So you guys go, seriously. This is the cutest store. Everything in there is real vintage. I keep joking that this is not the stuff that the kids these days call vintage, like from 2010s. You know what I mean? It's actually
Well,
the 50s and 60s.
I know.
and
I mean,
70s. There's some stuff, but
I tell people all the time
mostly.
because people come into the store and they'll say to me, I just found out that 90s is vintage. I can't believe it. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
You're like,
90s.
2010s is vintage of this.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense, but like 90s is landlocked now.
Yeah.
Like we're in Y2K is old news
Yeah.
at this point. It's becoming old news. But yeah, it's 20 years or older. It's vintage. So
But
20.
majority of the stuff in your store is like actual. I mean, whenever I'm in there, it's 1950s, 60s, 70s. The real stuff that I think of as
Yeah.
vintage, and that's what I appreciate about your store is because you can find so much of that, and it's hard to find that nowadays.
Yes. And I think it's still like secondhand clothing has taken off over the last few years. And I think that's great. We need that. We were talking about sustainability, but there is a lot of like muddied up confusion between secondhand clothing versus vintage clothing. Of course,
Yeah.
vintage clothing is secondhand clothing,
Right.
but we always have to explain to people like it's not just secondhand, it's vintage. And that's why it might be a little bit more expensive because it's a collectible.
Right. Well, that brings me to a question that I have, and then we're going to open it up for more questions. So, how do you find all of these amazing finds? Yeah.
So I started off with the more obvious stuff of thrifting. That was my favorite pastime, was going to thrift stores. And this was before I even had a smartphone. So I would go to like mapquest.com and I would like make a whole route for the day of like
Print that out.
Yeah, print it out and like hit up every Savers. And there was a lot more Salvation Armies at the time. I loved Salvation Army. There's not as many anymore, but
There's one right down the street from you too.
there is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We don't really, that one's kind of right. But
Mhm.
so I would go thrifting constantly, and then eventually as you push volume, you're not going to be able to get as much as you need from a thrift store. And then as thrifting has become more and more popular,
There's not as much stuff in there.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
And everyone thinks, oh, you found this for $5 or $1. And I'm at a thrift store. I'm like, have you tried doing that?
Yeah.
And then to stock a whole store. So there's more wholesale sides of things. You go to rag mills, they're all over the country. It's a little bit more business oriented though. Like you need a resale license and it's not glamorous. And there's Goodwill bins all over the country, estate sales.
Yeah, I was thinking it was probably a lot of estate sales. I mean, do you do that a lot?
Not as much as you would think, because it's not a bad thing, but they've gotten a lot more popular. And so they're hostile. I go to them and there's a lot of people. They've always been a little bit awkward and stressful because you're shopping. It's like a social event, but you're not really talking to each other.
Uh-huh.
And you're like competing with each other. But yeah, it's not, I mean, you can find really great stuff at estate sales, but it's traumatizing.
Yeah.
The last one I went to, I was like, I'm never going to one again.
How funny.
But then I get people, because I've been around for a long time. So part of it too is just the longer you're around, the more word of mouth gets around. So people will call me and I'll go to their house and I'll just hang out in their closets with them, or like they were collecting just for fun, or they wanted to try to sell vintage and they realized that it's actually a lot harder than it looks. And so
They're giving it up. They're
it's
like, "Here
it's
you go."
unreal how many houses I go into and they're like, just their living room is like a store as all. And I'm like, they're like, it's been like this for 2 years. And I'm like, I get it. But
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to
Wow.
make something
Yeah.
take off like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. My mother-in-law passed away a few years ago, and she had like so much stuff that she had held on to for her whole entire life. Closets and closets full of all this most amazing vintage stuff. And we were really upset because she passed away, and we were emotional and everything, and it had to clean out her house. She was also like I'm going to be nice and not call her a hoarder. She was a collector, and she had a lot of things. And so trying to figure out how to move all of those things, and we had one weekend to do it. And so I just gave most of it away. Like, it was crazy how much stuff we just gave away
Yeah.
because we just at the end of the day didn't have time to figure out how to
Yeah.
sell that stuff.
and it's a burden, and that's hard too, because I'll get phone calls like that, and even it sounds like amazing stuff, but it's always like do or die. It has to be cleared
Yeah,
out by
by
tomorrow
tomorrow,
night,
yeah.
and it's Christmas Eve.
Yeah, that's
and
how it
literally,
felt.
that last Christmas Eve, I was doing that, and
I
I
should have grabbed it all and brought it to you. I didn't know you at the time.
and sometimes you just don't even have the money to get it, and
Yeah.
you're like,
Right.
I don't even. I wish I.
I mean,
didn't
this was
even
in
know.
California. I'd have to get it here, and you're
Yeah,
like,
it's hard.
Would have been
So
like a whole moving truck full of vintage clothes, which I'm just like,
I know it's I hear it all the time, and it's hard. And I forgot to mention, we do buy, sell, trade too. So since we've had the store, that's how we get most of our clothing. So similar to like a Buffalo Exchange.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really great to know.
So if you're in that situation, you
Mm.
can bring the clothing to our store by appointment.
Do you do any consignment ever?
Sometimes, but
Depends on the
consignment
item.
kind of sucks.
Yeah,
Like
it's
you
hard.
just always owe someone money,
Yeah.
and the item can be up for sale for like a year, which we're used to, but not the person who thinks it's worth like $1 million and needs their money instantly. And so like tracking it
Yeah,
and managing
tracking it would
feelings
be
and-
hard. Yeah. Wow.
yeah. So if it's like a super valuable piece, and I know I just can't give someone the money that it's worth, we'll do it on a case by case basis. But it's I'd rather not,
Yeah. Right.
especially because there's so many platforms now where people can sell stuff. So I'm like, okay, if you really think this is worth $2,000, like you could put it on Etsy. Like
Right.
it's never been easier, but it is also hard.
So if you had to tell somebody who was thinking about getting into this as a job, what would be like the biggest bit of advice you would give them, or any tip or something you think that would set them in the right direction?
I would say be realistic about it, because a lot of new vintage stores, they start off with a bang, because a lot of times it's like their own personal stuff that they're maybe sick of wearing. And if it's your personal stuff, it probably is like a grade above the rest. And so when you come out with like, your 3 personal Harley shirts and some really great things, can you maintain? And that's the
Mm.
hard part, is
Mm.
like maintaining the consistency of your inventory. So yeah, just be realistic about that. And there are more people selling vintage than ever before. I mean, it's unbelievable. So even me, who I've been around for so long, I'm lost in a sea of 12 different selling platforms and a zillion stores, and some of them being amateur stores, which is great because you can have a side hustle. But when I'm a full-time
Yeah.
seller, and the side hustle people maybe are selling the items for less because they have jobs elsewhere, you have to figure out how to navigate through all that.
Right.
So yeah, just we all make it look like I found this for $1 and then I sold it for 500, and like that almost never happens. And when it does, few and far between, you're just like, thank God, because I need to like pay bills. And for the most part, the profit margins aren't huge.
Especially because the time that we just talked about that it takes to get this thing ready
Yes.
for sale.
Right. It's
Yeah.
a labor of love. Unless I would take it into t-shirts, because like Y2K t-shirts and Y2K clothing, which I love. I've really learned to love it twice now because I lived through it the first time.
I'm having a hard time with this.
No, at first I was like, but like I love it. There's so much of it because unfortunately a lot of it was made in other countries. So, but it's so popular right now. So if you sell vintage, sell Y2K vintage because there's no shortage of it and people want it, and you can get it for cheaper than some of the older stuff. So.
Well, the fact that you've been around so long, that traction and that stamina and everything is really, why you're able to maintain as well as you can, I mean, to make a living off of something that you love, turn it into a business and be able to have an employee and a physical brick and mortar and be able to do this. I know it's probably hard every single day. I know how hard that is. I know how keeping a place open and all the bills that go along with it and making sure that happens all the time is so hard. Everyone in this room that's an entrepreneur can appreciate that. So the fact that you did this for so long is really incredible. And I mean, like, so inspiring and impressive. And so I just want to like give you a big round of applause, especially all the hurdles. We all have these hurdles, and some of them are harder than others. And to keep going with those hurdles, I know how hard that is too. So keep going because it's such a really cool store. And the other thing is really cool is your Instagram. Like, you guys get your phone out right now, go to Instagram and follow Luxy Vintage and just look at all the posts. They're so good. They're just so good. The content's amazing. And the way that you display the clothes on the girls, in the little videos and things like that they do, and just they're so adorable and stuff is, you just want to look at them, I'm constantly like, oh my God, they're so cute. Look at this one. Oh, I need this,
It's funny, different ways of shopping. Because for some people it's better if they can go into the store, see, feel it themselves. But like my friend was in town recently and she was looking through my store and she was like, it's so much easier when I just look at your website because you do all the work for me and you show me what it looks like on somebody. And I was like, okay, sure. That actually I need to hear that sometimes because you never know.
Do you do all of that or do you do all of that? She does it? Wow. Wow. Wow.
Holly does a lot as well.
It is important. Yes, it's very important. But that's a lot of work to do all that content. I mean, that alone is a full-time job.
Yeah,
right
like I said, I can like describe stains in my sleep now. So like that kind of stuff,
Right.
I'm just like rattling it out. And like eventually, yeah, you kind of know you're going to talk about the same type of features like silhouette, one like statement feature, length, this, that, like what type of zipper, where is it, like the closures. And so you just kind of do the same description for everything, but slightly different because every single piece is one of a kind.
Right.
But that's hard too because you invest so much time into one item. And then when it sells, like if you sell like clothing where you have a lot of sizes for one item, you can take pictures for it and you can sell it, that picture 100 times in all sizes. Whereas, we invest all this time into a photo and when the item sells, it's still good to have the content with the photo, but the photo is more or less useless.
Yeah.
And all the time and energy you put into it is just like, bye.
Oh my gosh.
So that's hard
true.
too, because as certain models that demand more per hour, I can't really justify it because I can only really use the photos that for the item they modeled one
Yeah.
time.
That's why I'm so surprised that you're able to pay the models because like that right there, that's a big part of the profit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's just you can ask your friends so many times before they're like, this isn't fun for me anymore. And it was easier like before Instagram. Like it was a big deal to have like the photo paper and stuff. So models wanted that and they were excited for that for their portfolios and stuff. Whereas now everyone's a model,
And a photographer.
and a photographer,
Uh-huh.
and your pictures look amazing on your iPhone, and you can edit them very easily and look like you have a big career in modeling.
Right. How many followers do you have again on Instagram? It's pretty big, right?
Not really. We have
felt like it was.
20,000,
That's
but
good.
there
That's
was
really
oh,
good.
thank you.
Yeah.
It
awesome.
plateaued. So there was like these glory days on Instagram too, and now it's just the algorithm. It's very hard.
It's impossible.
We have more
Yeah.
followers than we ever had, but our views are
Yeah.
unbelievably low sometimes. I'm like, where did everyone go? They don't even see it.
It
So,
changes so often. Well, I see it. I love it. It's gorgeous.
thank you.
Okay, I want to open it up to questions. And you have a question. Okay, I'm going to bring the mic over so that the camera can hear.
I have a question about your modeling sessions. So do you choose one or two models and then spend hours with them with a bunch of different items? How do you go about that?
Yeah. So if it's someone we haven't worked with before, I usually ask them for their measurements. And if they don't really, not most people don't know their measurements, I've learned. What size are you, let's say, in clothing from this company or whatever. So we try to get a feel. But I always say the first shoot might be a little rough. But let's say it's someone we've been working with for a long time. We usually try to pull about 30 items. If I'm lucky, we can shoot like 10 items an hour. But it's like you're doing. We don't style stuff very heavily, but we do style stuff a bit. But we're talking, and they're my friends, and it's really hard to stay on track sometimes. And you also don't. You want them to enjoy it and want to come back. So if I'm just like all biz, I'm not good at that kind of stuff. So yeah, we try to shoot about 10 items an hour, and usually end up with like 25 to 30 items.
Are there certain days of the week you do these photo shoots or just whenever?
Yeah, sometimes, but you have to also, like, people think that when you have your own business, like, I want to have my own business because I want to be my own boss and I can make my own schedule. But when you're working with models, like, they don't work for me full time, and they're not even full time models. Like, they have jobs, they're in school. So when they're like, the only time I can shoot is like literally worst time of the week for me, I'm like, okay, like, cancel everything. So like, and Sadie, she doesn't even live here anymore. So when I find out she's in town, like, we want to stop what we're doing to make sure that we can get a shoot with her. Yeah. So like Adrienne, we've been working together for so long, like, we cannot talk during shoots. It's like awkward. Holly gets in the store, it's like quiet. We don't even have music on. She's like, are you guys mad at each other? And I'm like, no, we're just trying to focus. But we usually shoot like every Friday morning. I have my photography studio is at my store. It's in the back, which is nice because I need to be there. But when I first opened the store, I thought I was going to be able to shoot while the store was open. But as time has gone on, we have like spilled into that space. So we have clothing for sale where the studio is in the back. It's all on wheels so that we can move it when I do photo shoots, but it's hard. I've gotten to the point now where I only do photo shoots when the store is closed, which I'm at the store more then, because it's hard when customers come in and there's flashing lights going off,
Yeah.
and when half of the back of the store is closed, and
Yeah.
they're missing out on the merchandise that we have.
Yeah, that is hard. Any other questions? Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
I just wanted to say you look amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I'm definitely going to be at the Pillow Bag. And also,
Oh, yay.
I wanted to ask, this is kind of a more personal thing because I'm very inspired by your story and how kind of every facet of your life came into and became your business. So I suppose when it came to finding your personal style in terms of fashion, did that, and as someone who's trying to become more minimalist and get clothing that really matters to me, and that so I don't continuously buy more and feed into that, do you kind of look online, or do you just keep on going to stores to find pieces that you really love and feel represent you? Or
Yeah, I don't really ever go to stores. I wish I did more because I'm always complaining, like, I just wear the same thing all the time. And my friends will be like, well, do you try? Like, do you go anywhere? And I'm like, no. And it's hard because when you're looking for stuff online, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, you're typing in keywords to produce a result, versus if you go to a store, you just kind of don't know always what you're going to find. It kind of finds you sometimes. That, of course, can happen online. But I struggle with, so I buy most of my stuff personally online, or sometimes I'll just find it in my inventory. But it's weird. The longer you sell vintage, I'm like, that's not my stuff. That's like for someone else. There's 5,000 pieces of clothing, and I'm like, I don't have anything to wear. So when I shop online, I usually shop. I shop on eBay still. I'm just an eBay junkie from day one. So yeah, mostly online, and but it's usually a lot of times it's vintage. And then if I can't, I'm a human, so there are times where I want the cutest dress that just came out. But usually what I try, Holly has helped me out a lot with that, with Poshmark. So if maybe there's For Love and Lemons, I'll use that example because she's the For Love and Lemons like spokesperson, but they're expensive. And so if you find one from like 5 years ago on Poshmark, then at least it still was fast fashion 5 years ago, but it feels a little better when you buy it 5 years later, secondhand on Poshmark.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Jackson. I have a question. A lot of time that the vintage or even the few years old, they said professional cleaning only. And then I've been sending, but it's getting quite expensive. So do you, when they have a sign there, do you send to the dry cleaning professional
Yeah,
store?
that's a great question. And
Yeah.
there is the dry cleaners I've been going to. I wish he was here because he's like, it's all a lot of it's a scam. So he was saying to me, I don't know if this is true, but like in the 60s, let's say I don't know if I can explain this correctly, but whoever was producing the clothing, they had to make some sort of claim. And so it was easier to just say dry clean only because they didn't have to explain away the beadwork all over it. And like, you can't take that to the dry cleaners, but you also can't wash it. So they're saying, well, this is how you're going to do it. And they're going to let somebody else tell you that you can't do it. I don't know how that all works, but certain things like wool that says dry clean only, I started washing some of it and it came out great. And I was like, how did I not know this from so long ago? And certain silks I have
As long as
washed.
you're not putting in the heat dryer.
Right. Yeah. There are like burn tests you can do on fabric to tell what kind of fabric it is to see if you can wash it. But sometimes I think it's just not worth the risk. And even when I take stuff to the dry cleaners, they can damage it because some of the like vintage materials right, and they disintegrate at the dry cleaner. And you know, when they were making this clothing in the 50s, I don't know that they were thinking we were still going to be trying to make it work in 2024. And so sometimes it's like called dry rot, like the inside lining of a coat will just start rotting away. Well, it's just expired, but the coat itself is fine, but this like inside of it isn't. And or like if we take certain things to the dry cleaners, the buttons will literally disintegrate. And I don't know if it's because they're older.
You know, that podcast I was talking about, Clothes Horse, she has a whole episode. You guys, you got to listen to this podcast. Like, it's everything. And she has a whole episode on how to properly care for it's Clothes Horse podcast, like clothing, Clothes Horse. Yeah. And one of the episodes is like episode 200 and something. I mean, it's like I'm pretty far into this thing now, or almost 200. It's all about how to properly care for your clothes and how to get stains out and stuff so that you can maintain them longer. And she says that like actually dry cleaning's not even needed. Like you can get away with hand washing almost everything in cold and hanging it to dry. You know, and the dry cleaning chemicals are so bad for the environment. In fact, if you've ever seen sometimes when a dry cleaner closes, they can't re-rent or sell the property because all of the chemicals that have leached into the cement or whatever are permanently damaged the soil and underneath it. And it won't be okay, you know, for who knows how long, because it's such a bad thing. So, and when you pick up your stuff from the dry cleaner, she's like, the bag that they put on there, first of all, is holding the chemicals in there longer. You don't want to open that bag though in your car because then those chemicals you're trapped in your car with all those chemicals. She's like, so keep it in the bag as long as you possibly can because
And that's a problem too, because when we package stuff and ship it to people, when they unpack it, and let's say it has been dry cleaned and it's been suffocating in the poly mailer in the mail, and then we get this like horrible email, like it smelled terrible. And I'm like, well, did you let it air out for a couple days? Because then it would probably neutralize a little more. But I tell people all the time when they come to me and they say, how should I launder this? A lot of times I say, don't.
Yeah.
Just don't. And which is gross sometimes for people, but we
overdo washing. We don't need to wash clothes
as much as we do. I mean, yeah, sometimes stuff does stink. There are certain methods too. What we've had some luck with, it's like an old theater trick because when you have shows every night in theater and you're sweating and it's nasty, apparently overnight they would spray down the clothing with alcohol. And so every theater
you could literally put vodka on your clothes.
Vodka, yeah. They said use cheap vodka. And I just like that because it's funny. And everyone always like, we've got so much vodka in the back room there. And I'm like, we're not drinking it. But yeah, you spray it with vodka because it's alcohol. And so it will neutralize some of the smell. And then we steam a lot of our clothing. And if you're putting hot steam on clothing, you are definitely sanitizing it. It's like it will burn your face off.
Yeah. And vinegar, like
Yeah,
just
there's
white vinegar.
vinegar. So I struggled with that for a long time, but like we get clothing that smells like cigarettes or it smells like mothballs, and it's so amazing that I am not going to pass it up. You have to do multiple loads though, so you'll just do like a vinegar wash, but then all the clothing smells like vinegar, and nobody wants that either.
You gotta let it hang out for a little
Yep.
while.
So you got to wash it again, and you can figure out how much vinegar you need for the batch of laundry you're doing. But vinegar really does work. We've gotten so much cigarette smoke out of stuff and mothball
Yeah,
smells.
and stains and stuff. It
Yeah,
actually
mhm.
works on that.
Yeah, baking soda, just the old
Mhm.
trusties. Like we made all these new products, but you just kind of got to go back to basics for some of it.
But even like when you said you don't have to wash it, I mean, think about, certain things like your jeans, you don't need to wash them every single time you wear them either, or coats, like a pea coat or something like that. I mean, like, I don't know that I have a couple jackets. I don't know if I've ever washed them, but
Same.
if something is stinky in the armpit, you could spot wash that. Yeah, you can hang it outside. That's a really good one. Put it
Yeah.
in the shower. But like you could literally take a part of the garment that's stinky, put it under some cold water, mix it with some vinegar.
So
and
I will
just
say with
wash that one
vintage,
part.
if it's a new piece of clothing, the luck is better with that. So one of the problems is with spot treating with vintage is that when
Change
you
the color.
once you spot treat it, the 50 years of dust that has sunken into the fabric then leaves a ring.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so now you have like a new problem because now you
Oh,
have this
boy.
weird dirt ring, but the stain is gone.
Right. That's true. How funny. All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hi. I'd like to know I'd like to know how to handle the return and exchange.
So I try to act like a big, scary wall of all sales final, but I don't want, it's a small business and I don't like thinking about somebody who just spent $200 on something that they literally can't wear. So we usually try to really put that like all sales final. We gave you every piece of information you could have possibly needed before you bought the item, and you can always message us first. But if they tell me that like it doesn't fit, if you catch me on a good day, you'll get the return. Sometimes, like we just had a really, really unfortunate issue. So someone bought a wedding dress from us. It was from the 50s. And they said that when they got it, it was exactly how it was described, but they went to try it on with their mom to see, how it worked. And when she lifted her arms up, it ripped the lace, not on a seam, not even close to a seam where you could tuck it in. It just ripped the lace because the lace was old and brittle, which we also do try to mention as well. But it was just its day to go. And so in that case, I actually did not take the return because it was overseas for one. So what I said was, yes, we will take this return, but you have to pay for return shipping. And that alone, is it really worth it? It was like a $250 dress. It wasn't wearable. And I felt bad. It was also not sellable for us either. Because sometimes Holly can really turn a tattered piece of something into something amazing. But for that problem, and maybe don't lift your arms up. I mean, it's an old dress. It's fragile lace. No hugging at your wedding. Yeah. But so I said she could return it, but yeah, it didn't make sense for her. And she did end up understanding. And so usually in that case, what I'll do is I'll offer like a discount on her next purchase. So that she feels like she did get something out of it. And she told me that she actually ended up taking the shredded dress to a seamstress and they made a pattern out of it. And so she said without having the actual dress, I wouldn't have been able to make a pattern. And so they made a replica of it.
Oh.
So like
The
I
whole
didn't
dress or just replace the panel?
I don't know.
Oh.
I didn't want to ask too many questions because
Yeah.
I wanted to not think about it anymore. So like in that case, I didn't take the return, but I have in the past. It's hard for me to have sympathy for returns at this point because we do spend so much time giving measurements.
Disclaimers and yeah.
We use different body types too on some of the items, which some depending on how busy we are, I try to put more effort into that. But so there are times where we have a variety of body types with different measurements, and we talk about the fit on all that so that they can really see more accurate fit. And then they can always ask us. Anyone who emails ahead of time, usually we do a really good job making sure. I love talking people out of buying something. So if I'm like, if the measurements are too
That's
close,
so
I say, no,
funny.
don't buy it.
You're like me. I talk people out of starting clothing businesses all the time.
Online business, so I have to do the tag on
Mhm.
to stick on the
Yes.
clothes.
Yeah.
Um,
To make sure that.
and also try to make a strict rule for the return exchange, because some people, put on and then just stay on it or rip off and then return back. So I try to say if you cut the tag, you cannot return. But I realize people can buy the tag gun on Amazon or something easily.
Right. So there's always somebody
So-
who's going to be trying to push your rules. And it's hard
Right.
because we're competing with places like Amazon, or not even Amazon, a lot of stores that say, take it home and try it on. Like, you don't want to be hassled with going to the
Oh,
store.
and what about free shipping?
Free. So you already have free shipping, and then they have this take home and try on mentality. And you're like, I am such a small business, and this is going to actually destroy me if I keep having to pay for shipping and having to resell an item, it's really weird if you think about in my world too, because we sell secondhand. So I take in used clothing and sell it, but taking returns it really is devastating to a business. But you also have to accept that that's what the world wants and is used to, and you just have to kind of find a happy medium there.
Yeah, America.
Yeah.
We all want it like fast and perfect. But that Clothes Horse podcast, she talks all about the whole like return world and the whole free shipping thing, and how, that's one of the things that needs to change. I mean, we have the instant gratification kind of thing because of Amazon, and now we all think that everything should be here right now and it should be free delivered to us. But there is expense associated with that. And it's, the people that are actually shipping that to you, and there's a driver, there's gas, there's buildings, there's all of that stuff. Where's that? How's it getting paid for? It's getting paid for in the profit of that garment. So that company either added the money on to give you that free shipping. So there's no such thing as free shipping, but a small business is now expected to do that too, because that's what we're all so used to. So if you want to be like supporting apparel entrepreneurs and small businesses, then be okay with paying for the shipping. That's an expense that has to come out of somebody's pocket. It should be yours. You're the one that wants the convenience of having something delivered to you, a convenience that hasn't always been there. We take that for granted now, but you used to have to go somewhere and get something and pay for the gas to get there and the car to get there and all that stuff. And now it just magically arrives at your house. And so we just need to think about these things different.
Luckily with clothing, I feel bad for like furniture stores that are feeling the pressure of having to charge free shipping, or custom furniture that's like on Etsy. But clothing is most of our clothing is pretty light, so we were able to just bundle it into the price without it looking like our prices got really expensive. But yeah, if you sell bulky, heavy stuff, and there are times where we do have to eat the cost on shipping sometimes. But with most of our lightweight clothing, we're lucky that it didn't really impact our price points too much. But because it's hard, I mean, no one likes to see the added shipping at the end, and I have fully accepted that. But it is I also completely agree with everything you just said.
Yeah, it's hard. Any other questions? Okay, well, one more big round of applause. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you for listening. That was a lot.
It was amazing. I feel like we all learned so much. And go support her business. Go to the shopping events this weekend, because it's really amazing stuff. And if you want to buy anything tonight, she's brought some things that are actually for sale. And then if anybody also wants to do a tour of the factory, I'm going to head downstairs and take whoever with me that wants to go down there and see it. So hang out for just 5 minutes and then we'll head down there. And thank you guys so much for coming. Pay attention to the newsletter and our social media so you know about the next one. These are always the last Thursday of the month, unless there's a holiday like Thanksgiving or Christmas. So in December, it'll be the week before, just like this one. So come to the next one too. Thank you guys.